Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and in this series we're going from 1000 to 2000 elo in chess.com rapid games, where I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I possibly can for your education and entertainment. And today we have a Caro Kann defense against Savell Sandy, who goes for an exchange variation. And this is going to be interesting because the knight on f3 is not necessarily the best piece in the exchange variation because of bishop to g4 pinning the knight. So we will try to take full advantage of that. But first we are going to develop our knights. I suppose we could put the bishop here before knight to f6. That should be perfectly fine. Although, no, we'll go knight to f6 first, because if bishop to d3, bishop to g4 might be a little bit stronger, because if I go bishop g4 immediately, maybe white can go bishop to e2. My opponent's transposed this to a London system. Or sort of, anyway, which is interesting. I feel like we may have queen to b6 immediately, trying to exploit the b2 pawn, though. That could be dangerous for white. If queen to b6, how does he defend? He could go b3. Maybe that's what he has to do. And we can claim that's a weakness, but well, I suppose c3 would be the weakness, but it's not that easy to exploit. We could start with bishop to f5. We could also go bishop to g4. Bishop g4, queen b3. Not amazing. No, I think I will go queen b6. I think I will. My opponent may go queen b3 to match my queen and offer me a queen trade. And if I take him and he takes back with the a pawn, he opens his rook up, of course, on the a file, which is decent for him. I may not want to allow that. But he goes b3. Yeah, that looks a bit off. That looks a bit off, because long term the c pawn will hopefully be weak, is my thought process. But now let's just continue our development. I think bishop g4 looks perfectly reasonable. Although, again, he could go bishop to e2. We could go bishop to f5. And if bishop d3, exchange the bishops. We could do that. We could do that. Bishop g4, bishop e2. Well, I suppose, yeah, white doesn't really have anything. Let's just pin it. If he goes bishop d3, he can have fun dealing with this. He probably has to play knight b to d2 at some point, but no, he defends with the bishop. And, I mean, you know, I'm not breaking through or anything, but we also have knight to e4, trying to apply immediate pressure to the c3 square. The idea being that this knight can't develop because I will take on c3 with devastating consequences. So knight e4 does look pretty nice, and it's actually quite difficult for white to kick the knight away. He could play a move like knight f to d2, offering me a bishop trade, offering me a knight trade, and maintaining defense of the c3 square with this knight. And then, dunno, maybe we just have to exchange everything. Maybe we can go bishop to f5. Let's just go e6. We can always play knight to e4 at a later point. Of course, my opponent could play knight b to d2 and then meet knight to e4 with an exchange. Yes, I know. But c3 is still going to be weak regardless. Again, we have the option of this if this knight drops back. I don't think we have anything again. I don't really want to be moving my knight into the position just for it to get traded off very quickly. So let's just go bishop e7, play a little bit calmer. Okay, h3, let's drop the bishop back. I'm not really concerned about this. I haven't even committed to castling kingside yet, but my opponent has. So my opponent launching some kind of kingside pawn storm is not really on my radar as an issue. I can always hop my knight into e4 if it were to get kicked out by the move g5, for example. And my opponent does go knight bd2. He may be preparing to play c4 to try to kind of break out of the position. Although for the meantime, that would hang the d4 pawn in some cases. So I don't think we have to be concerned about that just yet. I like the look of rook to c8, But I also like castling because I think I want this rook on the d file so that if c4 is played, once I take on c4, I'll open up my rook on the d file, which basically the move rook after d8 will discourage c4. Obviously, rook c8 can also discourage c4, but white has lots of support for c4. It makes more sense to prevent c4. It makes more sense for me to apply pressure to d4 because if the c-pawn moves, it no longer defends the d-pawn, rather than trying to prevent c4 directly. I hope that makes sense. If you're enjoying the video so far, by the way, please drop a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps me to stay motivated with these daily uploads. b4 is very committal. What is the point? Maybe it's knight b3, knight c5? Can I not just go a5? Maybe he wants to go b4, and then my knight doesn't have a particularly great square to go to. If he goes b4 immediately, then I have the a5 square. This must be the plan. This must be the plan. Although, if knight b3, can't I just play knight to e4? And if knight to c5, then I can just take on c3. So, let's say, I don't know, rook a to c8, trying to go after the c3 pawn. Knight b3, knight e4, rook c1, obviously defending c3. Bishop f6. Knight c5. If takes, you can't take with the d pawn, I don't think. You probably have to take with the b pawn. Queen a5. We have decent pressure. Although I'd rather leave my knight on e4 and take here with the bishop, I think, to maintain good pressure on c3. I don't think rook ac8 can be a bad move. I don't think it can be a bad move. Let's play it. And I can still put this rook on d8 if I really want, but I'm not sure that's where it wants to go anymore, because by playing the move b4, white makes it clear that c4 probably isn't his idea. Okay, he goes rook c1 immediately. That, of course, makes sense. Because if in the other move order, I can put the knight on e4 immediately once this knight moves. Here, putting the knight on e4 doesn't really make sense because the other knight will drop back, attack. c4 is now up for grabs, and my bishop has to get traded. I don't really want to deal with that. Bishop to g6 looks like a valid move, but I don't really want to play it. Not yet, anyway. What else can we do? What else can we do? We could just go a6 and try and control the b5 square. That can't be a bad move necessarily, but it doesn't do that much. I don't think my queen has a better square than b6. This knight, it's difficult to maneuver anywhere else. I could try and maneuver into c4, maybe, with something like this, but it's a long-winded plan. Knight e4. Again, my opponent probably just exchanges. I could go rook f to d8. And maybe these plans work better in the future by opening up the d file. Maybe e5 is on the cards with pins on the queen. So I think I'm going to go for that. I don't know if this is an amazing move, but my thought process basically is it's difficult to develop but improve any of my other pieces. Therefore, I might as well improve my rook. a4. Okay. Well, a6 looks pretty tempting. He could go a5. Queen a7. b5. If I go a5 myself, and my opponent goes b5, the issue is this knight. Where's this knight going? It doesn't really have a good square. I could go knight e4 again. And then if b5, I of course have knight to a5. If knight here and a5, I can probably just go queen c7. Oh no, I can't. It would hang. Oh, my queen would get trapped. My opponent is threatening to trap my queen. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's that's fair. That's fair. I could go bishop d6, offering a bishop trade. But I think just bishop g5 and my knight is vulnerable. Bishop d6 would, of course, give my queen the c7 square. I could go rook d7, and on a5 go queen to d8, although that looks passive. Here, 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 here. Then I can take, and then, yeah, that hangs. So I think a6 is the move I'm going to go for. Not necessarily the correct move, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it. It should be okay. Because in the long run, I think these pawns should become relatively weak. I just have to deal with the initial threats posed by white. I have a very good grip on the e4 square. I can throw a knight in there. I mean, the moment he moves this knight, basically, if this knight goes to b3, I'll probably throw my knight onto e4. Then this bishop has a clear square that it can go to improve itself. If knight to c5, I could take with the knight, and after b takes, queen a5, my queen looks pretty good there, attacking several different targets. I can maybe play b6 to try and break apart my opponent's pawn chain that could form. That all looks pretty promising. My opponent isn't spending a whole lot of time here, which, I mean, he's made decent moves for sure, but I'm not overly convinced by his plan of queenside expansion. Normally, in these Carlsbad structures, this is what this pawn structure is known as, like a Carlsbad. Don't ask me why, I assume he's a player, but this is what this structure is known as. Normally, the white side of this, right, the one missing the e-pawn, tends to play moves like rook e1 and throw a knight on e5, because that's clearly white's stronghold in black's territory. My opponent doesn't seem fussed about the e5 square whatsoever, and maybe playing it more like a London system, as the chess.com opening database seems to think he is. But I don't know. He's not making bad moves, sure. He's advancing and taking space, but I feel like he's leaving a lot of holes. I mean, if a5 does get played, obviously queen a7 is the only move. He can try to keep pushing with b5, but I mean, his pieces aren't set up to support a queenside storm. c3 is weak, a5 will be weak, d4 is pretty weak because c3 is weak. There's the e4 square that I can try and exploit. It's not obvious how white will actually sustain an attack on my queen side. If he goes b5, I probably just go knight to a5, and the c4 square will prove to be a problem most likely. Maybe I should take on b5 first and then go knight a5, I'm not entirely sure. But he goes knight b3, okay. Okay, he goes for it. Obviously he wants to come to c5. Even if he gets there, he's not doing anything insane, but I will probably take the knight. I think knight to e4 is a no-brainer. If bishop d3... Well, he can't take me because his knight's pinned to his queen, so that's fine. Let's jump the knight in. I did say before that if I get the opportunity, that like the moment my opponent moves his knight, I'll move my knight in. So I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And I mean, knight c5 looks like the logical follow-up to knight b3. And the question is, do we want to take the knight? I think so. I mean, the knight isn't necessarily doing anything that bad, but I don't think we can leave it there. I think we've got to get rid of it. So then the question becomes, do we take... Yeah, okay, he goes for it. The question becomes, do we take with our knight or our bishop? Of course, if we take with the bishop, we lose the bishop pair. This becomes a very strong bishop. But are these squares that consequential? I don't know. If I take with the knight, and he takes with the d-pawn, I have to drop my queen back to a7. That's the only square. And then b5, maybe it's playable. But probably not. I suppose the only issue is, if I take the knight, my queen is under attack and has to go to a7, which just isn't that nice a square, is it? I could play the move a5, trying to break apart the pawns. If he takes me, probably take with the knight, but then there's rook b1 ideas going after the b7 square, so that doesn't quite work. If I take with the knight, sorry, if I take with the bishop, if b takes, then I just go to a5, and that's very easy. The problem is if he takes with the d pawn, that makes it more complicated, because my queen only has the a7 square. And I suppose she might come back out later, but it is awkward. It is awkward. I could go bishop to f6, but then probably my opponent takes. Probably. Can I play the move e5? Can I? That looks really complicated, but it might work. If knight takes, pawn takes, that looks winning. Knight here. Oh no, maybe not. Maybe not. What else do we have? Again, I want to take the knight, but I'm concerned about d takes. I'm concerned about him taking... Although, realistically, if my queen's on a7, is it that big a deal? b5 never works. a5 never really does anything. c4, my rook's open. That's the whole point of putting the rook there. Okay, I'm going to take the knight. Do I take with the bishop or the knight? I think I should take with the knight. So I can go bishop f6, which should be a good move. Although taking with the bishop keeps pressure on c3, which is nice, but knight takes, pawn takes. I can always put the bishop here to attack, right? Yeah, let's take with the knight. This I don't think works. I don't think so. Queen a5. Several things are hit. You can go rook b1 to go after b7, but just rook d7 defends, probably. Yeah, he does take with the d-pawn, which is probably the better approach. Probably queen to a7. Well, that's the only move. That's the only move. And now I've got ideas of e5, now that I've forced the pawn off of d4. I have ideas of bishop to f6. I have ideas of b6. Over here, it is a 3 versus 2 technically on the queen side. So white could try and force a passed pawn. But the most likely way white gets a passed pawn is on the c file. And because he has a pawn on c3, it's difficult for him to support it from behind, which should make it easy for us to clean the pawn up if he tries overcommitting them a bit. So that seems pretty promising to me. Again, bishop f6 is a move that I want to play to get my bishop on a very nice diagonal and also control the e5 square to prepare e5 and maybe even d4 in the future. Maybe we can start pushing our central pawns and create our own, well, not our own passed pawn, because my opponent doesn't have a passed pawn, but to create a passed pawn. Okay, he does go b5. He does go b5. We could take, but I don't want to open up the a file for his rook, especially given my queen's lack of space. So knight to a5 seems like the move. I could take on c5 and sack the knight, but I don't think that's worth it. I mean, if something like bishop c5, take, I get two pawns for the piece, but like knight e5, for example, and I'm busted. So knight a5. If b6, again going after my queen, just queen a8, and you're going to lose this pawn. You can't defend it. Let's go knight a5. I also like knight a5 because we control the c4 square a little bit better. And this knight can't really be attacked. Yeah, he goes b6, but like... Oh, maybe he wants to go bishop c7? To be honest, though, I can probably give up the exchange there and be better. Potentially. Although there might even be an easier way to do it. Bishop c7 is the only move in my eyes. And the idea, I assume, being if rook d7, knight e5, chasing the rook. And then I probably have some issues, sure. But this, I mean, I can just take, surely. And my pieces are pretty nice. My queen's going to get back into the game, probably via c8, or even on the diagonal that his bishop just vacated. But if bishop c7, I also don't have to sack the exchange. That's not necessary, because also, how are you defending c5? It can't be defended, really. Because if, like, rook 8, yeah, rook 8. Maybe the idea is this, though. Maybe that's the idea. If take, rook back to d8. Well, then you can't defend d6 anyway. You're going to lose the pawn regardless, so let's not even sack the exchange. Let's just move the rook. And now white has to figure out, how is he defending c5? You can't play queen d4, because I have knight to b3. He goes c4, which is an interesting move. If take... Well, surely the bishop has to take. I don't think he's going to go queen d7. I don't think it works anyway. If I take here, then he takes on d5, and that's a bit annoying. My e6 pawn is very nice. I'd like to keep it where it is, thank you. I don't really want to take here with the knight, because then after the exchanges, the rook defends c5. So let's take with the pawn instead. And after bishop takes, probably take here. My knight can always come back to c6. Can I go ahead with this and be a pawn up with a strange position, admittedly? A queen on a8, completely out the game, no legal move. Well, no, not no legal moves, but no moves that make any sense. Should I start with this? Well, then he just goes bishop d6, and I'm in trouble. Here, white could try bishop e6 with a discovered attack, but I probably just have bishop to f2 desperado, and then pick up his bishop. I think this works. Same story with this. I just take desperado and then take his bishop. And the pin on the knight could turn out to be quite useful. Yeah, he goes for this, but I'm not particularly scared of it. Let me just have a quick once over. Yeah, he's attacking too many things. I need to just get rid of the bishop. Now maybe we double up on the e file. And our rook on e6 is decent, also attacking the b6 pawn. Let's take. We have to be a bit careful about our back rank. There's also opposite coloured bishops, so if white trades enough pieces, he could maybe try and go for a draw. His dark squared bishop is also quite a good piece. It's a good piece. Ooh, I didn't see that move. That's a good move. Good move. Okay, if take, my knight is under attack and queen f7 is threatened. So take, rook f6, counter-attacking the queen. Queen g4, maybe? I think I should be able to get my knight out of there alive. I don't think I've got another choice. Let's take. This is uncomfortable, though, because my queen is completely out the game. It's a pretty useless piece. Maybe rook to f5 is a problem. Oh, I missed that. I don't think I've got any other moves, though. If he takes on f7, I probably lose. Knight b3 has some interesting ideas, but the queen can just take it. So they don't work anyway. I didn't see rook f5. Oof. Not good. Not good. I don't think I have a choice. And then, yep, rook f5. If here, knight c6, queen f7, king h8, there's no bishop to e5. It's equal material. White's clearly better, but I can try to counterattack. I can try. But I don't think I've really got an option. There's no immediate checkmate, which is good-ish. I lose my pawn up, of course. And my queen is still on a8, but I can try and get my rook into the game somehow. And try and salvage something. If I were able to trade the queens and the rooks, I think I'm probably better, because these pawns are locked on light squares, so the bishop can't touch them. That's, yeah, a decent plan. I don't have rook to f8, of course. I probably have to do this, right? Rook g8, h5, queen e8, h6. Take. I think I'm just losing. Here. The bishop covers this diagonal, so I can't really give checks. There's some ideas, though. Let's try it. There's some ideas. I mean, after h5, I suppose we could play h6. It's not the end of the world. I don't really want to play it, but I could play it. And then, again, the question falls to white as to how he actually continues the attack. I don't think I can allow h6. I probably have to play it myself. Does white have any moves to keep attacking me? There's no bishop e5, which is very, very useful. I think I've got to go for this. Maybe bishop f4, going after h6. Of course, king h7 is met with this. But if this... maybe I'm okay. Now, the issue will always be the b7 pawn. It will always be the b7 pawn, which could be my downfall, because this b6 pawn is so far advanced, and it's difficult to defend b7. If bishop to f4, of course the queen is opened up to b7, so if queen e8, my opponent theoretically could just take on b7. And I can't do a whole lot about that. This is not a move I considered. Here. But then I have check, and if king up, I have check. I think I have a perpetual there. If he trades with me, I think I'm okay, because he can go after the second rank, but I have rook e7 there, which I'm probably better, to be honest. Rook f7 is the move I'm expecting. Cutting the connection between the queens, and obviously applying more pressure, but even if I don't have... yeah, I mean, even if I don't have this, I still don't think that white has anything. if check, rook f1, queen e3, king h2... I can't give him any more checks for the time being, but he also has no threats. I could give a check on e3 first. But then king h2, so... But yeah, I don't think he has any threats, though. If here... Oh no, queen f8 is the idea. But then again, I can always go king to g8, and the best he can do is a perpetual. Let's give the check on e1. I think I may be able to salvage a draw. I don't think I can win this, but I think it would be a bit silly to try and go for a win also. If he goes back, I could deliver a check on d4. Wait, can I go king here, check, king there? Can I go rook e8? Can I get away with that? I could take on a4, I suppose. And I don't think white has a threat. But I like this more, I think. I can always repeat if I want. If rook f2, then that looks abysmal. Can I go rook e8? Because my queen defends g7. I know the queen has contact with my rook, but if he takes here, I just give him a check. King h2 and I take. And I'm good. I think this works. Let's try it. Maybe rook f1 is the only move? Covering the first rank and attacking my rook with the queen. Maybe that's the only move. Oh no, this doesn't work, does it? Check. White's not in time. King h2 only move, queen h4 mate. Oh my god. Wow. I can't believe that I managed to win that. I'm sure white had a better move here. Yeah, white's still better according to the computer, but let's jump into a game analysis and see what we could have done better, where we went wrong, and what we did well. Well, this was a crazy game with blunders on both sides and some interesting sacrifices that the engine wanted to go for. So I'll show you that later on in the analysis. But anyway, we get a weird exchange Caro Kann. We go d4. Well, my opponent goes d4. Knight c6, c3, knight f6. Just getting the pieces out. I'm waiting. I'm basically waiting for bishop d3 so I can go bishop to g4. Because if I go bishop g4 straight away, then my opponent probably goes bishop to e2. And I mean, this position's good for me, but, you know, I might as well just chance it, right? It doesn't really change anything. So bishop f4 essentially turns it into a London. I go queen b6. I was expecting queen b3 here, and to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do. The computer wants queen d8, which, I mean, realistically, I wasn't going to play. Bishop f5 is okay as well, if take. My pawns are really bad, I know, but I've got the open file, maybe I can make something happen. The only move that really keeps the advantage here for white is knight a3, which I don't even think is that obvious. I mean, knight bd2 looks pretty decent, but apparently not. Anyway, my opponent goes b3, which is not great. Bishop g4, bishop e2, e6. We have a slight advantage in the opening. Castles, bishop e7. The computer did want the immediate knight e4, which is very interesting. Why did I reject this? Why did I reject this again? I think I was concerned about c4 at the right moment. Or maybe, I don't know, something like this and then? I mean, I don't think it works because there's issues on d4. But as you can see from the evaluation, I'm better, but it's not obviously better, right? It's not like -2 or anything. It's only -0.4. Anyway. I go bishop e7, which is fine. h3, bishop retreats, which bishop f5 was better, but okay. Knight bd2, castles, b4. b4 was strange to me, but obviously we saw my opponent's intention later on. I go rook a to c8. Computer preferred rook f to c8. I don't really know why. Maybe it thought that I should expand queenside and have a rook behind it. But I thought my opponent can always play b5 anyway. So rook a c8, rook c1. Here, queen d8 is the best move. I mean, I'm not really going to find that, to be honest. I go rook f d8. I assume queen d8 is better because the computer doesn't like the fact that my queen has no space right now. Here, the move I should have played was actually a move I considered in the game, which is bishop d6. And I thought, well, if we get an exchange, this is good for me. My queen now has escape squares, and I'm probably better. But my issue was, I was a little bit concerned about bishop g5. So I was like, I don't really like this pin. I also don't want to go back because, I mean, the easiest thing white can do is just repeat, right? Quite simply. Or he can do something else. The computer wants queen c7 here, which, I mean, I saw this idea, but I thought, well, this knight is still pinned, and white can take whenever he wants and ruin my structure. I suppose the computer's point is that, yes, he can do that, but you always have bishop g6, and your king isn't really weak. Which, yeah, sure, but also difficult to play practically. I went a6, which is the wrong move. Knight b3, the immediate a5 was better, which I was more so expecting. But okay, knight b3. Knight e4 is the wrong move again, bishop d6. But again, I was concerned about bishop g5. Knight c5. Again, bishop d6 is the move. I suppose this time I don't have to be concerned about bishop g5, so I don't really have an excuse. I assumed I had to take. I didn't. I did say during the game, the knight looks good. It's not necessarily making problematic threats, which is true. And now with a5, I have queen c7, and this position does look a lot more pleasant. Yes, this knight is good. And I do probably have to take with the knight. It's a good knight, but like everything's defended, you know? I'm okay. Rook e1. I don't know. Can I mean, the moves aren't that obvious, actually. The computer wants this? No, b6. And if knight takes here, queen b7, the knight is almost trapped. Yeah, he actually has to sack the knight. Although this would be a very interesting position. The pawn, like 3 pawns versus a knight, essentially. But I took on c5, dc5, queen a7. And after b5, this was the wrong approach. a5 was better. I mean, white takes space. Maybe the point is to prevent b6. And my queen doesn't really have a way back into the game. I also don't have bishop d6 to trade the bishops anymore. Maybe that's the idea. I think I wanted to play something like bishop f6 and e5. But my opponent goes b5. Now, the fact that I should have taken baffles me. Because I thought, well, this is idiotic. Because my queen is trapped. Now, of course, it's my move. The only move to not get a bad position. Try and find it, actually. This would be an interesting position. Knight b8. And if rook here, I assume I take on c5. If b6. Queen a5, if here, I assume I take. If bishop c7, then again, I have to sack the rook. And I've got a bishop and a pawn for a rook, but I'm probably going to win c5 as well, so the material should be equal, and I have the bishop pair. My opponent goes b5, knight a5. I should have taken the knight on f3, apparently. The computer's been wanting it for a long time, to be honest. b6, good move from my opponent. Queen a8 only move, bishop c7. And here, I thought that I could consider the move rook d7, which the computer does like. It also likes bishop c5 immediately, and going for this sort of a position, which again, I considered. I think I was concerned about c4, though. I don't quite have time to grab all the pawns. And here... Not knight c4, dc4. A very complicated position, but one that I think is easier to play with black, to be totally honest. I went rook e8. I also could have gone for this and sacked my rook like this, by the way, which I probably would have preferred. But rook e8, c4. I completely missed c4. I didn't even see this move. I don't really know what I was expecting, to be honest. I think all that really went through my mind was, well, there's no queen to d4 because of knight b3. That was all I was really thinking. I think I should have taken on f3 so my bishop didn't become a target later on, because of course we saw it become a target later on. But I thought that my opponent's bishop could be very active on this diagonal, particularly with c4 on the board, ripping open the center. Apparently it was the lesser evil, though. Rook e8, c4. dc4 is a mistake. Again, I should take and then take. G takes is maybe better. That's insane. That's ridiculous. I don't know if anyone ever plays this. d4, that's kind of cool. Looking for this. Anyway, I played dc4. Bishop c4, which is the wrong move. Knight e5 is better. And after bishop e2, queen e2, bishop c5. Not knight c4, but rook fd1. And black is essentially paralyzed. Bishop c4, though. Again, I should be sacking my rook and going queen c8. This is what the computer wants me to do. And maybe this pawn survives, but I can always blockade it with knight to c6. I've got decent pressure. I've got the bishop pair. And my queen is back in the game. I took on c5, though. My opponent took on e6. Here, I should have gone for this. Bishop f3, queen f3, and knight to c6. Material is equal. White is slightly better. But the difference between this position and the one that happened in the game is that this rook is not open on the f-file. What happened in the game is I blundered. Bishop f2 is a blunder, because after rook f2, rook e6, I missed rook to c5. Let's say white plays something like this, which looks natural. This is the kind of thing I was expecting, and I was like, well, I just go knight c6, and my position is completely fine. Because it is, it's completely fine. And I maintain my pawn up. Yeah, my queen sucks, but I'm a pawn up. I'll untangle eventually. But I missed the fact that my opponent had rook to c5. I have to take on f3. I really can't do anything else. The second best move is knight c4. Just losing a bishop. In human terms, obviously you're going to take the positional disadvantage rather than being down a whole bishop. So I take. Rook f6. Here, I saw only later on that rook f5 was a move. There's also queen g4, which is even better. Threatening, of course, rook takes f6, pinning the pawn to the king. If I take here, bishop e5, and apparently white has mate in 4. Oh, yeah, this is problematic. Also difficult to see, though. Rook f5 played. Computer says inaccuracy. It's the most natural move. I have no choice but to take this. Rook f5, queen f5. And I have to move my knight. I have to give up the f-pawn, move my king, and just try and survive this position. My opponent throws the h-pawn down the board. Only spends like 20 seconds on that move. Better is queen d7. Maybe trying to do this. And if rook g8, not rook to f7, but bishop g3 with eyes on here. And if I play this, then trade and rook f7, and I can't defend the pawn properly. If I go knight a5, I assume, no, not bishop e1. Oh no, bishop e1, yeah, that is the move. And my knight can't hold on to the pawn. And once this pawn falls, this pawn marches through. h4 though. I go rook g8. Rook e8 is better, apparently, because after h5, h6, the computer actually thinks it's drawing. Maybe the idea is, let's say white plays a nothing move. I was thinking maybe check and queen e8. but actually it's rook e7, an idea which I kind of missed. And after the queen moves, knight e5, and I'm back in the game. I went rook g8 because I wanted to go queen e8. h5 is a miss. I go h6, queen g6, queen e8, offering a queen trade. If my opponent takes here, I thought I might even be better. Because if this, I thought I had this. Apparently, white can do this, but white's certainly not better here. It's just knight versus bishop, really. And knights are tricky, so I would prefer black here. But rook f7 is played by my opponent, and here the game is basically drawn. Now, I find this idea of perpetual, right? I see that I can give my opponent perpetual checks. I also see that I could take on a4. I was a little bit concerned. I know there's no mate. I know there's no bishop e5, but this looks scary. The best move is rook f... No, not rook f5. Rook f4. Well, what happens if white does something like... I don't know. A nothing move. Then the computer wants... Oh, the h5 pawn hangs. I suppose white has no threats. But I went queen d4. I thought that I could take this pawn at any point, but that I would set a trap with rook to e8. Now, the computer thinks that white has one move, although it's kind of changing its mind now. It was thinking bishop to g3 to cover the checks, I assume. Also cover this check. But black has one move to draw here. Try and find it. This is important to try and be able to find these moves. It's just rook back to g8. And white can't make progress is basically the claim. If this... There is also only one move in this position to draw the game for black. Knight e5. Attacking the queen. If the queen moves... Queen d1, king h2, knight g4, king h3, knight e3 attacking the queen. And after queen f3, queen h1, bishop h2, knight f1, queen f4 defending, take, take. And apparently this is a draw. This is a threat, I suppose. I mean, this is ridiculously hard to see. My opponent takes on g7 and blunders the game. Why he spent a grand total of, what was that, like 6 seconds on this move? I have no idea. If you're going to play rapid games, use your time, guys. Like, he played a perfectly good game. He spent, I don't know, half an hour of his life playing this game. Just to not think and blunder mate in 2. He was clearly a good enough player to spot mate in 2. Right? We can all see that. You can also mate in 2 like this. And rook e1. And if the bishop blocks, still rook e1. But yeah, an interesting Caro Kann game. Very unorthodox Caro Kann as well, but the Caro Kann remains undefeated. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to see another interesting Caro Kann game, check out the video up here. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.